Hello. It's just me today, but I would like to talk about rats and other things. But first, um, there's a Washington Post article about eliminalia, and this is a logical outgrowth of the search engine optimization field where you manipulate search engines. And this one is a reputation management firm in Spain that would get rid of irritating stories. A prominent executive or TV celebrity would be accused of a sex scandal or something, and they would want that story off the internet. And there's basically three ways to do that, and this firm employed all three. The first one is to flood the internet with fake stories of some other topic to make you sound better. So they made a whole bunch of fake websites that looked very close to real websites and flooded it with stories of you doing innocent, harmless, good things. So it'd be harder to notice the bad thing about you on the internet. The second one is one that really caught my attention, abusing reputation theft. I tried to get a bunch of colleges maybe 8 years ago interested in the redirectors on their websites. There were redirectors pointing to illegal sales of drugs on their websites, and I couldn't get anybody to care. But this is a fairly common problem on websites. I mean, the number one most common problem on websites is cross-site scripting, but a similar, very common problem is that there is a way to put some kind of link on your site that links to some other site's content, and now it appears on your site. And this means that it is interpreted as part of your website. And he used this reputation theft technique successfully. So make websites that actually appear on the domain of something like a reputable newspaper or a government organization, but contain fake stories from a third site. And that's one technique. And so that's one of the many ones. And the last one, of course, is bogus copyright violation reports. And this is a big one. It's been around forever. It's a direct consequence to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act from 1999, which said that if you are a publisher of any sort and you put content on the web, and you can put up content without knowing whether it's copyrighted or not, which is very common, especially if you let like user comments. They might put something up there that is in fact copyrighted, and you don't have to worry about that. If you put up a website and somebody puts up copyrighted art, you don't need to like somehow try to figure out if it's copyrighted. You just need to wait for a complaint. And if you get a complaint and you take it down, then you're off the hook. So everybody just says, well, if we just take anything down as soon as there's a complaint, we have no legal risk. And we don't need to bother trying to figure out who really owns something, which is difficult. So that means all you have to do is send bogus copyright infringement complaints to people, and they will almost always just take down whatever is up there. So it's a very effective way to get sites taken down. And they use this too. So the company's changed the name, but it looks like they're still continuing the same business. Anyway, this has been going on for a long time, but it's a big expose in the Washington Post about exactly how this one firm did it, and they're probably a good exemplar of the class. The thing that caught my attention as the most important story is contraception for rats. Rats are a huge part of the human, of the life forms that go with humans. They've always been with us. Tons of rats are in every city, and they're really quite a problem. They spread diseases ever since the bubonic plague and so on, and nobody has any good way to get rid of them. And since they cause such serious problems, we use really nasty poisons to get rid of them, really nasty poisons that linger in the ecosystem and probably come back to us and poison other animals and stuff. It's really bad. So finding a better way to limit rats without killing them is a good idea. And there's an article here on phys.org where they have developed a contraceptive for rats, and they figured out how to make a drug that causes male rats to be infertile for a month after eating this stuff. And then they found a way to genetically engineer yeast to produce vast quantities of this stuff for cheap. So this would be a much, much better way to live over the number of rats. And by the way, for your animal rights enthusiasts, it is more humane. You don't kill the rats, you don't poison them, you just render them infertile so they will have less offspring. So that's a win-win all around, I think. So I'm glad to hear that. We certainly, I remember I grew up in the country, and when I moved to the city, I learned that city slickers solve every problem with poison and noise. Everybody has horns and alarms. and they spray poison all over the place to kill weeds instead of pulling them up. And you know, spraying poison all over the place is not good for you, which seems like common sense. And so it'd be better to switch to more benign poisons. I was surprised to see an article saying, dark reading, that OWASP is at risk of irrelevance. And I was going to ignore this as nonsense. And then I saw it in major high figures in OWASP. Now, OWASP is the Open Web Application Security Project, and it is very important. It is at the center of web application security. They make products like the top 10 list, which is huge. Every vulnerability scanner based on the OWASP top 10. And they research web vulnerabilities, and they publish code samples and rules for web vulnerabilities. And I'm constantly using OWASP products. I think everybody is. But one thing they point out here, which I've also noticed, is they have a whole lot of open source projects that just sort of seem to get about halfway finished and then are abandoned, like a lot of open source projects. And they say it is really not able to keep up with the current development of web applications in its current model. And these people that are very much insiders, very much knowledgeable about OWASP, say what they need to do is to get more corporate donors and have more money to pay people for things. And certainly that would be possible. I mean, every major tech company is in OWASP. I'm sure they could get donations. And so it's interesting. They just want to become more business-like and less of this old-fashioned open source model where a bunch of people just donate their time for no money at all, which really is not the most effective way to do something once you hit a certain scale. So I'm interested to hear about that. I hope something good comes of it. OWASP is extremely important, and I certainly hope they manage to continue and even improve their operations. News Atlas has an article, New Atlas rather, by Laws Blaines, pointing out something I'd never thought of. There's a lot of talk about carbon capture from the atmosphere. A lot of people are talking about this. I see two major types of articles on it. One is a lot of people developing prototypes and trying to get funding to build more. And the other is environmentalists saying this is garbage, this is all fake. There is no way to ever collect enough carbon dioxide from the air to make a difference without emitting more carbon dioxide to generate the power you need to do that. And the only reason this exists is as a sop by oil companies to pretend they're cleaning the air when they aren't, like carbon offset price carbon offset, purchase of land somewhere seems to be totally fake too. Or the only place where it might make sense to do this is in the chimney of a plant. You have a lot of carbon dioxide, and you can catch it where it's concentrated. So that's worrisome, because cleaning the carbon dioxide out of the air is certainly something we're going to need to do. But what these MIT people have figured out is that seawater is a much better place to pull it out. Seawater apparently has 100 times as much carbon dioxide in it as air at our concentration. So it's actually much more efficient to pull it out of the seawater. And 30% of the carbon dioxide that we produce is in fact captured by the ocean now. So they say cleaning the ocean could in fact be financially practical and clean out the considerable amount of the CO2. So that's an interesting idea. And again, of course, everything's still at the prototype stage, but we need to ramp this stuff up really fast. The climate is already changing really rapidly and hurting a lot of people. And we need to do something about the CO2 emissions in the air, which are not really going to stop until maybe 2050. And by then, the climate will be really bad. So we really need to start fast with all these carbon capture solutions and ramp them up as fast as we can. I was surprised how many people don't know about bird flu. I mean, the reason why eggs are too expensive in America right now is because many flocks have been wiped out by bird flu. The bird flu is really bad, and it's spreading among birds, and it's just getting worse. It's decimated wild birds. It's killed many flocks of chickens. It's brought into your domestic flocks by wild birds that land around and carry it in, and now it's jumping to mammals. And there have been maybe 6 cases of it actually jumping to humans, although the bird flu in its current form does not spread among humans to any significant effect. But people are trying to figure out what to do about it. There are some plans to somehow isolate your chicken farms better, or to change them to a different design, which sound pretty impractical. The most practical solution is to vaccinate the chickens with various vaccines, including RNA vaccines, the kind that have been so effective in humans. And Europe has already begun vaccinating their chickens. But there's an issue. Some Americans America is reluctant to begin a program of vaccinating our chickens because if you do that, you are no longer able to export the chickens to other nations. Many nations are afraid to take chickens who have been vaccinated because the belief is if you've vaccinated them, some of them may have the virus and be able to spread it, which is what happened with humans with the RNA virus. And this is why a lot of the anti-vaxxers got really upset. Instead of wiping out COVID entirely with the vaccination, it decreases the number of people that die and saved a lot of people, like 200,000 or a million people in America. So that's a good thing, but it doesn't make you completely unable to catch it and spread it. So that's an issue. And so they'd rather take unvaccinated chickens that have no symptoms, which they believe would not have much risk of bringing in the virus. And whether that's really true in practice, that's currently an economic decision that people have made, and it makes them reluctant to vaccinate their flocks. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting and very important, I think, for people to know that the bird flu is a really big problem and not getting better anytime soon. And another thing that really surprised me, I put up a non-paywall link to this. When I was a kid, there were deer everywhere in the woods, and apparently deer have become a huge problem. Deer have exploded in population in America so much that they're eating all the greenery and all the shoots of the young trees and everything, and destroying the forests and starving out many other plants and animals that would like to have nothing to eat, nothing to live on. So he says the deer population has grown too much. So he said people really should get guns and go hunt deer. It would be better to kill off a lot of the deer. An interesting situation. I wonder what used to control them. I wonder if it used to be wildcats or wolves or something, but apparently whatever used to limit the growth of deer is no longer doing it. And the deer are really a serious problem. So that was news to me. I thought it was interesting. So that's it for this one. And I'll have another one on Friday.